Hi, everybody, and welcome for after prolonged break to People and Tech. Let's call it and say season 2. I think the tone may be changing this season.
It's season 2, doesn't it? It is season 2, yes.
It certainly is. Perhaps less of the tech and more on the people.
Thanks for coming back to listen to us, in particular after all the shit that you've heard about us over the last few months. How long of a hiatus have we had?
I don't know, it was October, September, October.
We had ample time to have prepared this, but we haven't prepared it at all. You'd be
No.
happy to hear. So we're really flying off the seat of our pants. We've been quite busy. We've been traveling. We've been standing up new teams, new geographies, where there are a couple of fun things that are being announced, and you may have heard about a bunch of them online already, such as our beloved tearsofdopamine.com. Go give that a listen. But outside of that, we've tried to keep our head above the water and obviously keep our clients happy. The world doesn't stop because one has baby reindeer personal drama. So that's been interesting. It's been quite a challenge keeping up with the Jones of the technical world while being what can only be described as in some of the most limit situations of our life.
I would say so, yeah.
We should address it outside.
If you cannot see it, I hope you said yes.
I mean, not everyone is looking, so whoever isn't looking.
I mean, it's very good for your morning gratitude.
It's good for your anytime gratitude. I don't think there's a special time where one cannot be grateful whilst out here. So where we are very, very. We don't sound it because we're tired and we've been doing a lot more than we expected to be doing in the last few months, weeks, I would say. You're probably not in the short. You want to move a bit more in.
We can do.
We've destroyed our martyr shot.
There we go. I think
everyone needs to take a good look at us. So let's get back to what little there is of business, which is the question of the day. The question of the day to me is, when does work stop doubling as an identity?
Yeah. When does work stop doubling as identity? I mean, going way back, people used to be called their jobs, Mr. Cooper, etc. And I think a lot of males still, especially, and I think, as much as we like to say that, sexism is dead of all the rest of it, I think it's still predominantly the males are going out to work and predominantly create their identity through work and who they are in life through work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a male versus female thing. No. I think it's absolutely a human thing where we hitch our carts, our proverbial carts, to being this person who is X is Y. By we, I mean everyone in the workforce. With that said, surely there are different.
I don't know. You meet someone, a party, say. Second question is generally, what do you do for work? It very much identifies you all the way through it.
You're right, of course. And that's understandable, and many people are they find a lot of pride into what they do, and as well they should. Let's face it, we were some of those people until a while ago when we had to start doing other things as well. And when there's no universe in which we're going to argue that there isn't a great amount of status that comes from doing the right job, and that is really what powers the world, right? Everyone just trying to do a good job. At the end of the day, where is that who I am outside of work laying for us professionals of a certain age in particular? I suspect that this delimitation of who you want to be and who you are blurs with time. Ideally, you go more towards who you want to be. The younger you are, the less you've placed your bets. But the likes of us that are in our the second wonderful part of our lives, what we do for work, that has to be who we are. In my case, maybe less so, but would you not say that that's the case? Would you say that's the case mostly for technologists, mostly for males, for anyone at all? Or would you?
Well, I can only speak for white collar workers, should we say. I don't think there's very many. Not disparaging a petrol pump attendant, but a petrol pump attendant would be saying that's what he does for work in the same glee as a developer would be saying who's
I think that.
in.
That's very wrong. I'm sure that there's loads and loads of people
Yeah.
who are doing a lot of.
Well, I mean, maybe, yeah, it's
jobs
bad.
that they take. In fact, I don't dispute that 1,000,000%. I think it's very likely that blue collar people take a lot more pride in their job than most programmers,
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that's the case?
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't have pride in their job, but I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily identify them as people.
So you think that there is something about the type of job that we do that seeks into our consciousness and into our way of being ourselves, and that's a lot more definitory than any.
Absolutely. Where we're struggling with the work-life balance, where we're struggling with that identity of self.
I wasn't in the picture. Physically, wasn't in the picture if anyone's watching this. So maybe that's for the best.
We could dispute that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That's cute. So the reason we're asking this, and the reason we're saying this, and the reason we're starting the season with such a deep and strange, to a degree, question is because we have had to do a lot of soul searching together with our teams and together with our investors and together with our supporters regarding what we stand for, regarding what we believe in, regarding who we are professionally and individually as humans. And a lot of that thinking, maybe we want to turn and face people as well. Or
Yeah, I have been.
we can each take turns in facing deeper.
They're looking at the duck. They're going to sense they're looking at the duck.
We've been out of the picture for a minute because we had to regroup, and a lot in the world is moving. Let's be honest. Most of the world is in movement, and most of the world is in turmoil, and not everyone has the luxury of thinking nothing else is happening, right? We live in a world where there's active war in two important places, if no more really. We live in a world where there's civil rights being trampled every day. We live through this ourselves. We used to think that it's just a theoretical thing, but it isn't at all just a theoretical thing. It's an everyday reality for those of us that are different in any which way. And we live in a world where there's no certainty doesn't exist anymore, or not the way that it did. So how can we identify with jobs and our work in a world where, let's face it, AI is coming to get them? Here's the second question.
How do we
AI is coming? Continue believing that it's okay to identify with what you do.
So if AI is coming to get all of our jobs, does that necessarily mean there are not more jobs created off the back? Or does that not necessarily mean that other people are able to focus more on those things they'd like to do?
I like that. I don't like the more from the back argument, because, I mean, what does that even mean? How many jobs do we need to have? Who knows what amount of jobs must exist?
Oh,
I
just tried the camera again.
That thing is gone.
But yeah, used to say to the kids that people I worked with, their jobs didn't exist 10 years ago. This is now just that cycle on steroids. There's still going to be more jobs out there than...
I don't agree at all.
Yeah,
I don't agree at all. Everyone will be out of job. So what? Why does everyone have to be a job? There won't be more jobs created. I mean, for a long, long while, there will be just this supreme confusion as always. But once the confusion lifts, there will be very, very few jobs remaining for humans. And those will be the jobs of being intensely human. The jobs we don't know how to do. Jobs that all of the people listening to this would be the last picked for, because we are technologists, because we didn't spend time looking inside and understanding our feelings, because we are the ones that are most proud and have had most amount of, can you grab that autistic burnout? Yes. Have had the most amount of stressors, the most amount of trauma. And so, of course, when we were prepared, whether it happens this generation or the next one, that's definitely where it's going. Why else, if you assume any rate of...
this is the Elon. If you assume any rate of improvement at all within the video game, you get to the point where you have to assume that we're all inside a video game.
Not bad to tackle, argument today. I mean, I've often spoken publicly against Elon, but he's not necessarily wrong on everything. You know, if the man knows something about the stimulation, and the stimulation, all this.
Knows everything about it, yeah.
I have nothing against any emulations, but what I do have something against is the fact that we are not willing to accept that. We by we, I mean all of us in technology and business, not as eager to accept as I would like us to be, that it's time we rethink work, it's time we rethink identity, it's time we rethink our worth as humans. It's time we start valuing other things like kindness or comprehending others. It's time we start rewarding people for those things. There's not a lot of, you know, if we accept this is moving at all, there's not a lot of time remaining for us to. We are behaving now in our 40s and 50s and 60s like people were behaving in their 70s back in the day in the workforce, clinging onto a chair. We are now clinging on to nothing's happening. This is Y2K. But something is happening, and it isn't AI. My view is that what is happening is this collision of two types of beliefs, systems, and attitudes in the workplace. One is that I get to be me, and I get to have rights, and I get to be valued, and I get to have boundaries, and I get to have thoughts and creativity. And the other belief is I get to do what I am told to do, and I'd better move with fear. And these two beliefs will collide. And when they collide properly, and they are doing so every day in the workplace, what you have is what looks like enterprises that have loads of human debt or loads of tech debt. Have you not recently, if I'm not mistaken, want to tell us about it, recorded something about tech debt?
Yes, done a small little snippet on tech debt.
Yeah.
On how to tackle it, and a few articles around how we need to resolve it and see that.
It's your last episode of Developer Insights.
Yes, the last episode of Developer Insights.
Tell the people what your last episode of Developer Insights is about. I haven't actually listened to it. What is it about? So,
conversation between myself and Mikael Otterson around basically his career moves and the things we think around sort of pair programming, TD, and tech debt. How we can identify, remove, and
to between yourself and the, would you say, famous .NET developer?
The famous .NET developer.
Right. Okay, cool. So I'm sure people are going to go ahead and listen to them.
That made it sound so appealing.
It may not be for me, but it may be for everyone else who cares about how developers talk to each other about their insights. So you'll find it at Developer Insights.
Absolutely.
And obviously, we've also launched Tears of Dopamine as our podcast that details our experiences as parents of trans children ourselves. But other than that, we just kind of, let's get back to this conversation over who are we? Whether you're a technologist or an accountant listening to this, or I doubt we have many people who are accountants listening to us. If you are out there, holla. But whoever you are a human with a life, most likely a parent, and most likely someone who is living through this period of extreme world insanity where things are changing for the worse. Nothing feels solid, nothing feels safe anymore. And all of us are faced with the same reality, right?
Yeah, the world is changing.
And
the next industrial revolution is upon us.
I doubt it's going to be a lot worse than that. Even this sort of,
Yes.
I guess, a lot better than that, not a lot worse than that, because it's a question of how you want to claim the chips have fallen for humanity, and the fat lady of where the earth lands hasn't yet sank. For all the singing we've heard so far, it's not going to be a nice landing. I mean, it doesn't matter what you look at. There's not one area that I can confidently say, well, at least X is going well. Can you think of anything? And I mean, you're not the most positive of guys, so the best of
No, the whole political situation around the world. Most countries all seem to be struggling. I don't think there's many countries that view their government favourably at the moment.
And no government is really moving on climate change whatsoever anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all just being kicked to the back.
And on top of everything, we now have absolutely devolving civil rights and police brutality and episodes of overt and blatant hatred towards children, things that would normally not happen because they are far from the fabric of civilized society. So this started terrifying in many places on earth right now. And to ignore that and to continue being a shoemaker who can rest in that identity is probably difficult for everyone.
It is. And think of that, they've got, do we get to the Blade Runner view of the rise of the corporations? I mean, the corporations do seem now more powerful than ever. Countries by and by seem to have given up trying to get a hold of their tax dollars.
I hate this argument. Such an easy discussion, if I'm honest. I
Where
hate it
tax resides.
when the boys are talking about it as well. And in particular, when there's an entire anti-corporation moment that the boys would have in a conversation. Because it cannot be thoughtless. It cannot be wide stroke. What are we to do away with then? Capitalism altogether?
Yes.
I think we must be a lot more intelligent when we take the discussions, the genuine discussions about where should power exist in society and where should people be safe and how should people be safe. Because those discussions are bigger than just corporations or politics. They're about individuals and their willingness to come to the table. I think that's where we need to work more. You know, it's very easy to call, push the boulder down the line and to point the finger at the corporation or
I'm not pointing the finger at the corporations. I'm saying the government seem to have given up the chase on the corporations on trying to bring those into here a little bit. I think to, the ordinary taxpayers, when they see they've paid more tax than Amazon have, you got to start thinking there is something wrong.
Yeah, I don't touch tax on our podcast.
You can see. That would be a
fact. I don't touch politics. I don't touch any of those because I just feel like, let's face it, there are simpler arguments that we can't really make off of these podcasts without the impunity of knowing that they won't really land. So what are the odds that something as complex as a throwaway remark on tax or politics would be taken not out of context?
Very true.
Very high. So, side of tax and so on, what do we think has happened? What are the big changes of late? We've seen a lot of conversation around measuring of teams. Again, good for Google and the Dora community for sponsoring these talks. I haven't seen as many people into them as I would have liked to have seen, but it's worth giving it a good gander. Recommendations wise, what else would you say would be useful? Right. Didn't I think John Cutler put out a nice little podcast as well. You should listen to it. Yeah. And obviously, kind of wiring the winning organization is not something that should be missed. Nothing that Gene ever touches should be missed. In particular, today, when the question to me is not whether Gene or you or I say the right things, but who's listening? The question to me is, and even if people are listening, should they be listening? Does that matter? Does it matter more than life?
You'd like to think someone's listening.
Yes and no. I'd like to think
or is that just
listening. I wouldn't. I would like to think that no one's listening. People are just out living a life that's of righteousness and goodness to their children. But I suspect that's not necessarily what's happening.
No, it reminds me of the old kids show when you just switch off your TV set and go out and do something like instead.
On steroids, yeah. So that's not where it's at. It's not at the hope for 7,000. But if we're looking at kind of what has happened in the world of corporations in the last 2 years, no, in the last 4 years since the pandemic, would you say anything has changed in the world of technology? Have we advanced any which way? Have we learned to do anything better or less or more? Or
no, I think we've got, from the view we've got at the moment, it does seem like the return to office is being pushed unabated. I'm not entirely sure how successful that's being now.
In some industries, it's super successful, too successful. In film industries, it will never catch. And I am pleased to see digital nomads everywhere thriving. Let's face it, after we forgot to tell our listeners that we have one of the, in our exercises of starting a business in Europe and elsewhere, the easiest we've had it has been in really Spain and in Malta, but we see the digital nomads are still alive and thriving everywhere as a culture. That's amazing. That's good. Must remain so. But obviously, extending that would be needed to a lot more than just digital nowadays. To kind of move it from the element of novelty to the element of life should
Normality.
be just any other way, precisely. So to bring it into normality, we need to do a lot more work in many corporations. But I put it to you that people haven't done the work for a reason that I find very intriguing. I was going to discuss it with Alessandra on the secret society as well, which is it possible that people just didn't want to uphold the point? And that is because they needed the humanizing desperately. Think about it.
So they needed. So they didn't uphold the point of remote work.
Of I'm not coming back, right?
Yeah.
Remote work. Because they subconsciously, despite knowing intellectually they should, and that's the way to go,
Yeah.
they needed desperately to be with others.
Yes, and maybe that brings us full circle. Being known by your job.
Is your work your identity?
Yes. If your work is your identity, if no one sees you doing your work, do you have an identity?
I didn't even necessarily consider the visibility aspect of it. Surely people are able to do a lot of visibility theater online as well. You don't need to be in the office. Maybe there is something physical about people wanting.
But that still doesn't, discount those chance meetings in hallways and bumping into Bob from the council.
If you just please don't mention any water cooler, I might throw up. It's going to be like one of those toothbrushes. Don't do it. You're better than that. All of us that have set foot back into the office know we didn't need to be there. Anyone who's done a meeting.
Yeah, we didn't need to be there to do work.
No one needed to be there to do work.
Yeah.
But we all need to be with other people to be intentionally human. I think there's a lot in here. I think the future is that of experiences. The future is that of humanizing intentionally. The future is that of people coming together to have mind wandering, to create, problem solve, to have a goal, to move the tickets in a sprint together in person for that magic, for that psychological safety wonderment moment, for that king of the happy have moved this ticket together. So yeah, that's coming back in some way. But we haven't landed on how. And I don't think it's going to be a question for us anymore. At this rate, the generation is going to change and they're going to decide on their own to show up when they feel like it.
Yep. Yeah.
They might do.
And maybe the stereotypical view is that of the lazy teenager. But is it a more industrious teenager? We watched the show Fisk when there was a guy came in from Fiverr who was just taking a Fiverr to hold a door open or run out to get some sushi or to do this, to do that, to do the other.
She had itemized his Fiverrs very early indeed, yeah. And does that mean that that person does not very well know their boundaries? They very clearly know how and what they should charge for. Congratulations to them. And maybe that is the way that you should monetize on any kind of interaction. But is that not a black mirror future that we should be wary of?
The people get paid by the
yes. That we leave our listeners wonder if we are wanted people or not.
There's a 50-50 chance to get 50 chance to get the answer.
I don't know, and you are gonna get this live happening. No, unfortunately for anyone tuning in with the hopes that something spectacular is gonna happen to us, I have news from our legal team that seem to amount that the spectacular things have ended. The bits coming next are going to be spectacular for the people who owe us. So we can't yet tell you everything. We'd love to, but there's going to be enough coming your way in the way of videos and commentary and even documentary we have hinted at multiple times.
Yeah, we've got a big story to tell people.
And it's been exhausting just
keeping up with it.
Materials and doing all of our, what was essentially the same type of exercise as the baby reindeer had to do. We, in our case, was just going through material from the period where we were genuinely very traumatized. We have both suffered from very serious PTSD. It's been quite distressing to even put ourselves back together, but I think we are on the mend. We are obviously not done processing. It's going to take a Kiev to unpack what this has meant to us and to the children. But for now, we are as stable and as happy as we humanly can be, and as interested in cracking what is it that keeps the world of work and the world of personal life and really emotion and genuine existence apart, because the separation is not serving anyone these days.
Agreed.
Let's ask people though, right?
Yeah. Let's ask people, are they identified by their jobs or not?
Yeah. How do they genuinely feel about it? So send us comments,
Yeah.
leave us your thoughts, or respond to our tidbits on TikTok. We're really interested to hear how you feel about this. How was it for you when something big exploded in your life? Obviously, hopefully nothing as big as this exploded in your life. But did you feel supported by society, family, your work? And did you feel more connected to your identity than not? Answers on a postcard, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.